This is a unique school. What makes West Springfield High School unique is the strength of the community, the strength of the teachers, counselors, the administrative staff, the support staff who are here working, and most importantly, what makes us unique is our student body. Oh, this is a great place. It is a large school, about 2,200 kids. It serves a community that's very, very solid, very, very supportive of education, of what we in the schools do. The folks who have been associated with this school over the previous 30 years have done an outstanding job of putting in place a program for students which is very, very challenging and very stimulating, which has changed over time and grown with time. And there has also been a really fine job done of finding and bringing in outstanding teachers. There is a real solid and strong history and background of strength and academic
1, 2, 3, over 1.
You need to have out your graph paper
1, 2, 3, over 1.
In the lesson in algebra, we were learning to graph lines using 3 different methods. We started out with the students working at their seats, having a graph grid in front of them, and a wiki stick, which is a little bendable play toy. We actually got it from a toy store, and they had to graph the lines using the wiki stick, and then draw that line on the piece of paper that I gave them, which had the graph grids as well as the problem on it. In a year-long study of algebra, we learn about lots of different things. Graphing is one important factor that we learn. In addition to that, there are lots of other topics that are covered. But it's not only for algebra that they have to know how to graph. They have to know how to graph things for every course that they're going to take, every higher math class that they'll take. They need to know how to graph for their science classes. They need to know how to graph just to do some simple things in life that they could set it up using slopes and using graphs. Besides taking out of the classroom the obvious math that they're learning and they'll be able to use in higher education and throughout life, I'm hoping that they take a people skill out of the classroom, being able to relate to other students, being able to relate with me. We do a lot of group activities, and I want them to be able to work with other people because they'll have to do that in college, they'll have to do that in the workforce, and they'll have to do that in life, in their own families and friends and strangers.
The only reason church and state was ever brought up was because Thomas Jefferson wanted to prevent King George of England from taxing the church in 1802, not to keep school prayer out of school.
In World Civilization, we try to do a debate once a quarter. This quarter, it was tied into our study about religions, world religions, and so we were debating whether or not we should have organized prayer in public schools. And clearly that's a debate that's already been argued by the Supreme Court, but it's interesting for students to talk about it because they have to do a lot of research to find out why did the Supreme Court judge and rule the way that they did, and what would the argument need to be if we were going to overturn that case. The most rewarding thing as a teacher that I see is they walk into the halls and continue the debate. And to me, that tells me they're interested in the subject. This is not a subject that they necessarily face every day. We obviously don't pray in schools, but they enjoy the mental challenge, I think. And we talk about this in terms of an intellectual discussion or a dialogue, not in terms of an argument or not in terms of a fight. So they're not allowed to look at each other during the debate. That keeps it from being a personal issue. So on long term, what we see is that it really improves writing in the English classroom. I see that even when they're talking about something like the Odyssey or Romeo and Juliet, when they're writing, their arguments are much stronger and more cohesive. In the social studies part, we see that they're taking lessons from history and sort of talking about them in modern times.
In Catholic school, yes. If I told you that I wanted you to draw a triangle with a side of 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters, and 5 centimeters, how many triangles could you draw? After what you did today, what do you think?
In the lesson today, my students were split into groups of 4, and each group had a packet with 4 envelopes inside. Each envelope had, one envelope would have 3 given sides, one envelope would have 2 given angles and 1 given side. And essentially their task was to draw as many triangles as they could with each set of materials inside the envelope and to figure out triangle congruence theorems. One thing I really try to stress is that they see math in their everyday lives, that they see even if not every single lesson is applicable to something they do right now, that at least it gives them an opportunity for the future. You know, I tell them they don't know what's in store for them, they don't know what job necessarily, or what skills they may need, and to be as well prepared as possible for the future and for, you know, whatever their life may bring them. I have taught at other schools in this county and in another state, and I do find the students here are extremely well prepared. They're conscientious. They don't gripe, at least not too much, when you ask them to do something. They're just really, for the most part, I have found most of my students very ready to learn.
Draw a couple. You only have a little bit of
But
space.
these are pictures of actual individuals who spent a period of time at Andersonville. Some of them died and are buried in the cemetery there. Some of them survived. But I want to pass this out. Applied history is a class that I developed 6 years ago to engage students in a more direct, active, hands-on approach to the study of history by looking at such things as the science of history, looking at historiography, having students investigate in depth in a way that a historian would, particular episodes, particular arenas or areas that permeate history. Beginning today, we're starting our culminating classroom experience, which is their full-blown research paper on a particular historical case. And several years ago, I was casting around for a story that had a lot of different sides to it, that would require different avenues or different venues of interpretation. When I came upon the case of Henry Wirtz, who was the only man to be tried and convicted in the United States for war crimes. He was arrested at the end of part of the assignment. Will actually take them into the National Archives, into the records that are kept at the National Archives, to do actual primary source research with primary source documents. They'll be using medical reports, they'll be using prisoner diaries, they'll be using different kinds of accounts as they try to construct their own particular history about the case of Henry Wirtz. I'm not one that subscribes to the maxim of George Santayana, where those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. I'm more interested in getting them to look at the story and understanding who they are in relationship to the bigger picture of the story of history, as well as to come away with really good writing skills, really good reasoning skills, thinking skills, and an ability to love history for the rest of their lives.
Okay. So it's 1 mole of this requires 1 mole of this. And so this is 0.2 moles per 1,000 milliliters, so that's how you come out. Well, AP Chemistry is the culminating course in chemistry, and right now the high school curriculum in Fairfax County and in this school consists of biology for freshmen, chemistry for sophomores, physics or an elective science for juniors, and for seniors, an elective science or advanced placement biology, advanced placement chemistry, or advanced placement physics. Well, in this laboratory, this is a 2-part laboratory. Actually, it's going to take us 3 parts to finish it. This is our 3rd day of the laboratory. The students have synthesized a complex coordination compound called alum from its basic ingredients. And they've isolated the crystals and dried it and weighed it and determined the formula for the compound. This is the equivalent of a freshman class in college. And we try to put as much into it as we can in the time that we have to do it. Most of these students are going to go on in science. Many of them will go on in engineering. And for many local schools in Virginia, chemistry is the course that will cut them out of the program if they don't pass it. So in the past, my students have done exceedingly well in chemistry in college. I've never heard of anyone getting a bad grade that has taken AP Chemistry.
Well, where do you think that one should go? I think maybe 3 over there and 2 over here.
Well, which ones are talking? Which ones are more interactive?
Subbonitis.
BLTs is going to be around when this guy is. So I think maybe if we put both of these guys over here. Like who else?
This is a very creative class full of advanced writers. I have students working on 25 different projects in here. I have some students writing poetry. I have some writing short stories, some are writing novels.
The project is basically all started last year. I had an idea to write a Shakespearean tragedy about deli sandwiches. And over the summer, I took a class at George Mason where one of the teachers was a puppeteer. And she gave me the idea to turn it into a puppet show.
Now, what about the plot? Why don't you explain a little bit about that?
Well, the hero, Grilled Cheese, who's back there, he is basically the Romeo of the deli sandwich. It all takes place in Kmart, and he thinks the ultimate love is to be chosen from the deli case. But he finds out at the end, since it's a tragedy, that the deli case is really death.
We have tried, was starting last year, to combine our writing skills with technical skills because the school focus is on combining technology in every area.
Kids are good users of instructional technology, and we have made an ongoing effort over the years, not just recently, but over the years, to enable our students to have state-of-the-art as much as possible use and access.
¿Te gusta los deportes?
Sí, me gustan los deportes. ¿Qué deportes te gusta?
This is AP Spanish class, and today we are having our first practice with See You, See Me. We're talking today with Washington Irving Intermediate School. They are our feeder school, and they are the people we are practicing with, our first connection. Instead of writing email to the people we're talking to, we actually talk to them orally and can see them, and they can see us. The reason for talking with Irving is that it's the first time we have a connection. So we see in the future having connections with people in Spanish-speaking countries, so these students will be able to practice their Spanish. I want them to be able to understand some of the culture of Spanish-speaking world and to be able to communicate with the people in the Spanish-speaking world.
Number one, you have to know your audience, who it's going to appeal to, and then work your design and your design and composition toward that goal. All right?
What we're doing this afternoon is part of a staff development program that we have here at West Springfield High School. This is a group of faculty members who are meeting after school hours on their own time to learn to develop websites. What we're hoping to accomplish with this is to find ways to expand our use of technology in the classroom and out of the classroom, but primarily in the classroom. So what these classroom teachers will be doing, for example, you'll notice we have an art teachers here, we have business teachers, we have math teachers, science teachers, and so forth. They'll be taking this information back to their classes where they hopefully will be developing websites to showcase some of the things that their students are doing on the network that we have here at the school. We last year developed a project called a web-based international writing anthology. It's AWIWA. And from that, a couple of students and I put together websites, and it was a direct result of some of the things that I had personally learned in the users group.
Yeah, you're right.
See, that changes the whole meaning when I read it without knowing what it means.
It was hard, it's hard to know exactly what they mean if it's not in your language. You know,
well, maybe what we could do is, like, have in parentheses a little note or something.
Yeah, put a footnote. And what this did is it gave students who don't get the opportunity to be published in big literary magazines, it gave them the opportunity to have their work seen and recognized. We edited all the work that went onto the webpage, and that was really difficult because we had to drudge through, misspellings, grammatical errors, and all that stuff. I think it was a good experience because now we have more of appreciation for our teachers who have to do this with our writing. Plus, it just gave us, an outlook, and it helped me with my writing to recognize these errors in my own writing.
Okay, last May we used the internet in a project in creative writing where we met up with some students from Bishop Ireton High School in Alexandria, and we did some dramatic monologues and some other poetry and sent it to them via email and got some feedback on it. It was a really good experience, not just because we got to meet some new people, but because we got objective feedback. It wasn't just our classmates telling us what they thought of our writing.
What did your student write about? What was the subject?
It was a dramatic monologue of Batman, and
it was pretty good. It was coming from Robin's point of view. He was talking about how he was kind of jealous and stuff.
Did it fulfill the components? Did it suggest something unwittingly about the character? The character's voice? Was that coming across clear?
I think so.
There was some of it that was a little bit awkward, just the wording and the lineation and the punctuation.
Yeah.
But
The rhythm left something to be desired.
Yeah.
With a lot of editing, we could work it out.
I really enjoyed the project because I was paired up with two different people. I was able to read two different dramatic monologues. They were both really good.
I will never be as good as my students are at understanding technology. And once I recognized that, I decided I was going to pick their brains. I found last year with our International Webpage Anthology that I could learn more from the students if I just put them in charge than if I tried to pretend that I understood it all and knew it all.
Dimitrovska Tatiana. Yeah, but I prefer to be called Tanya, and I'm coming from Macedonia, and hi in Macedonia is Zdravo.
This is a diversity leadership group, and the groups was really started by a counselor on our staff, Esther Pincus, when she became aware of the growing diversity that was developing at West Springfield High School. We found that cultures were coming together, and we sought to build an understanding with the goal of positive leadership for West Springfield High School and hopefully for our country later on. Sometimes students can come to a large high school like West Springfield High School and not feel comfortable because they feel they don't quite fit in with the so-called, American or greater culture. This group helps them feel a part of our culture, helps them feel familiar and get to know other students and realize that America still is the melting pot, and we are all trying to find our places in our society.
Tony, what's special about this year? What are you going to do at the end of the year?
Graduate.
And what do you do after you graduate?
Go get a job.
The Flex program is a high school program set up to transition the students from being in the school to the workforce. So basically, all my students go on to community settings and to do work activities. Some go to the florist and cut ribbon, or they might do other things at a florist. But they're all trained in the community so that they'll be able to get a job when they graduate. Today we're doing 2 mailings. Teachers bring in projects and work for them to do, and we label, stamp, fold, seal, send, and we're also making wreaths we're doing a fundraiser in here, so we're making wreaths as well. I would hope that my students, when they leave this classroom, get a lot of social skills and that they know how to work independently in the community. And I don't know if they'll be able to have housing by themselves, but to do as much for themselves as they could possibly do.
And welcome to the school library. This is the biggest classroom at West Springfield High School. It's a place where students and teachers look for information, and it's a place where the librarians try to promote reading and a general love of learning.
Basically, I used the library last year for a paper that I was writing for my English classes about Louisa May Alcott. I used the Tri-School Network to first try to find information about my different authors before I finally chose Alcott, like Mary Higgins Clark, Ellen Montgomery. So I went through, and I also used some books that had literary criticism in it about each author.
Ms. Rodas gave me the information to create the webpage, and from that I created the West Springfield Library homepage. It has a lot of specific reference links, like a style manual, and if you can't find what you want under the menus there, they have search engines right under it, and you can search many different search engines that are on there.
I use the email for my colleges because I don't like for more information and scholarship information, and it's really helpful to have it here and not have to have it at home.
I don't have internet at home, and I had to do a journalism report on guidance counselors and another one on dance. And she wanted me to use the internet, And there are so many web pages out there that when I went to use Procast, it made it a lot easier because it listed out all the different sites, and it was more specific than having to search through everything, and it helped me get my information.
There are students standing behind me who are signing in American Sign Language. These are ASL 3 students. At West Springfield High School, we have the pilot program for ASL 3 in Fairfax County. American Sign Language is, in the state of Virginia, considered a foreign language option. The General Assembly has declared it a true and valid language. So we have American Sign Language 1, we have 5 sections of that. American Sign Language 2, we have 3 sections of that. And this year, for the first year, we have American Sign Language 3, since we're the pilot program. The vast majority of American Sign Language 3 is carried on in the target language, which for us, of course, is American Sign Language. And so they are using conversational abilities that they would use with members of the deaf community. This is a foreign language option. So yes, they may take definitely 2 years of this for graduation. The 3rd year at this very second is considered an elective, but we hope that will change very quickly. Well, the benefits that come from using American Sign Language are many. First of all, of course, it is the learning of a language, just like you learn any other language. It has its own vocabulary, its own syntax. You learn about deaf culture, and as I said earlier, there are 36,000 primary members just in the DC metropolitan area. They may become interpreters of American Sign Language, and that is one of the fastest growing career fields in the United States at the moment.
J curls is exercise is going to isolate your tricep.
Weight training in the class, we have a combination of kids that are athletes and non-athletes in the class. Mostly we do power exercises. Hopefully the athletes will get some good power exercise out of it. It'll help them in their sports, and the other kids will have lifetime activities that are not athletes. So. Well, what we do is we start out, we're still kind of in a building phase right now. We have core exercises that we do, and the kids use the core exercises. I test them every 7 weeks on their core exercises, and hopefully by the end of the year, they'll see, a large improvement from where they started. I don't give them set goals. I let them set their own goals as far as what they want to do. So. At the least, every kid should have a lifetime activity, something that they could do. They don't need to join a team to do. They can just go to a gym when they're adults and work out. The main goal is they'll have a lifetime activity.
Willkommen zu den 40er Jahren waren einfachen Kleidungen, waren Swingmusik und den Zweiten Weltkrieg.
In the chapter that we're studying in the textbook involves appearance and clothing. So rather than just doing simply a boring activity of vocabulary, and I thought it would be fun to do some kind of a holistic, interdisciplinary kind of activity. So we have chosen 1920s to the 1990s. So each group of 3 took a decade, and they are presenting music, clothing, and historical developments. And what I want them to do is to be able to understand that a foreign language is real, and no matter what culture you're in, life is reflected through communication. And that, I hope, is what they're going to come away with, and they were very excited about doing this. So I hope that will be kind of a thing that will last with them for a while.
What we were going to do today is sort of like what we've been doing at our sack lunches, is give you a chance to ask any questions that have been bothering you or anything that you want to know about as far as the high school to college transition. And twice a month on Fridays, the seniors are invited to join us in the Career Center, the counselors and me, and we've made it thematic. We had one session on how to fill out the college application. We had one session on how to write those pesky essays. And the last session we had last Friday was on scholarships, how to apply for them, where to look, what to look for, which ones to consider. With these students today, we were trying to talk with a group of students to find out what their concerns still are and to help them over any humps that they have, to answer any questions that they're concerned about in the college process. Plan to switch at mid-year and start working with juniors and getting them ready for the whole process next year. And one of the things that I talked about with the group today was the possibility of using some of them in the spring sack lunches as advisors. Things to tell the juniors, boy, I wish I had done this when I was in your position or when I was at this spot in time, because I think you heard some of the students saying today, stress is a big deal right now. They could use a class period where they do nothing but work on the college application process. All you have to do is go in. It's almost like checking your email.
Good, good, master.
Quiet, you fool!
I move, master.
Today's scene that you've taken has to do with the theater department, and the theater department is an encompassing curriculum at our school. It focuses on many different students and their skills. We usually employ approximately 10 to 20% of our total student population in our theater department for any given production. We're getting ready for a fall production right now, which is completely student-run, student-directed, student-produced. We have students from every group in the school represented. It is not what I would consider, some say, a theater group. It is a group of students that bring a myriad of skills to us. I think the success of the theater program, of the art program, of the music program is the wonderful support that we get from our community. I have never worked in a school system before where parents, business owners, others who live in the community that don't even have children that are involved in our school support what we do. Our students are gaining a lot of life skills. They're learning how to get along with a myriad of people. They're learning how to give commitment to something that takes a lot of time, that is truly volunteer. They're not being paid for it. They're here because they love it.
Now you got all your dimensions.
Yes.
What about your benches and everything? You can do that. This class teaches the students the basics about engineering and architecture, model building, the techniques used in drawing. We got this new lab last May, and so all these kids were with me last year, and they're learning right now how to use AutoCAD, the software that we're using. And that's basically what this class is doing right now. By the end of the year, all students will be able to use AutoCAD 13, 3D Studio, or Choral Draw, Choral CAD 3D. AutoCAD is a software where the students draw floor plans, they can draw buildings, they can draw in 3D where it actually shows up in a three-dimensional as opposed to 2D. It's just a drafting program. Anything that they used to do, as you saw the young lady here working on the board, they now can do on the computer, and most of them will find that it's much faster. These are skills they'll have to use if they're going to go on in architecture, engineering, college. So it's a college prep class.
And as the two are passing by,
Forte,
Kyrie eleison, Maria walks on.
The music curriculum here at West Springfield High School in the choral department has 4 components. It has the personality, which is a show choir. It has a Spartan choir, which is a beginning choir, and it also has a select women's ensemble and the madrigal singers, which you will hear today. The madrigal singers are open to 10th and 11th and 12th graders. The majority of the students in this class are 11th and 12th graders. Well, I'm hoping that we are training some students to be future musicians, that they can go into their college programs being music literate, and also to learn how to have poise and to perform in front of an audience, and just to get some music literate citizens for tomorrow.
One seems to hear words of good cheer from everywhere filling the air.
There is a kind of a vague but very real relationship, a sense of a positive, supportive relationship between the people in this program. There is a real positive school culture here. They know this is a good place to be. It's a pleasant place to be. It's a great place. It really is.